Yep, there's no fun like plowing your way through an arena match when all of your opponents are less than 10% of your weight. I'm talking about driving the big rig, the heavyweight, the Grand Poobah, the war rig. Before I built my first Gaslands car, I was already thinking about how I wanted to put this one together. So let me walk you through how I built this beast in what has been my most complex kitbash to date. When I saw this hot rod tractor trailer, I knew it had to be the base of my project. Plus, it came with a hot rod drag racer that'll soon be joining my team. I didn't love the trailer part though, so I borrowed one from another truck in the same series. I start as I do with most of my Gasland projects, separating the cab from the chassis with a 3/16 inch titanium drill bit into the connection points, then just pulling it apart when it's ready to separate. Well, look at this. They hit a little rat with a wrench in the cab. It's always fun when a manufacturer includes a detail you normally wouldn't see. I'll name him Big Daddy Beavis, and he is now canonically the driver. Next, I cut little squares of mesh to glue inside of the windows. It looks great and acts as in-game protection for the crew. This thing's gotta have guns, so I glue one to the roof to cover the gap. I'd like to mount some on the sides too, but I need to make sure they're not pointed at the engines, so I reassembled the truck for test fitting. Nothing makes a car look more aggressive than a plow or ram. I believe this piece came from an old 40K Rhino, trimmed to fit between the wheels. Now I'm using a little epoxy, also known as green stuff, to fill gaps and secure connections I don't trust yet. I keep my fingers wet so it doesn't stick to my hands while I'm working with it. Same for the tools, which are just some cheap sculpting tools off of the internet. With the cab in good shape, I glue it back onto the chassis using a hot glue gun. Say goodbye, Beavis. Alright, and onto the trailer. This little truck here will donate its trailer, which I'll glue atop the flatbed I showed earlier. I wasn't a big fan of this bit sticking out at the end. I planned to Dremel it off, but without my safety gear I decided against it. Somehow, my super scissors worked. Great! Quick file to smooth the edge. I'll cover the gap later with a bumper. Now I want the two trailers to fit together like this. But I have to remove these plastic bits on the bottom. Here come the scissors. They'll only get me so far, so it's time for the X-Acto knife. Remember to always cut away from yourself. My number one source of scars? X-Acto knives. Not even kidding. And just a quick file again. It doesn't need to be perfect here. This war rig needs some punch. I bought a set of little plastic tanks online. I'll use one in-game and borrow the turret of another for this build. I glue the cannon into the turret and pop it on top of the trailer. Got another gap to cover? That's the perfect place for this 3D printed rocket pod. The cherry on this thing's offensive capabilities sundae. Time for defenses. Like some sort of morbid crustacean, this rig will wear the hull of its opponents as armor. I start by salvaging the metal parts from these models. Now, there are large gaps where the windows used to be, so I cut sheet polystyrene down into some improvised armor plating. These cars need to be secured to the side, so I grabbed some jeweler's chain and wrapped it around the armored hulls. I glue the chain to the cars periodically so it doesn't move around too much while I'm painting it. Now about that gap in the rear. Wait. I cut two rectangles, each a bit wider than the trailer, but not too tall. The shorter piece is glued on top of the larger one so that it sits flush with the bottom. Now we need spikes. Simple. I snip the tips off of toothpicks and glue them where needed. Next, bolts. I found that 28mm plastic spears, this one from a skeleton infantry kit, were just the right width and super easy to cut down to size. So I sliced 3 cross sections and glued them to the top of the bumper, which I then attached to the back of the truck. Now the main section needs spikes too, more toothpick tips, placed wherever something looks a little bare. There she is, ready to paint. First, a coat of Krylon primer. I liked the cab's red, so I started with Vallejo Black Red as the base coat. Same for the sidecars and the tank turret. I want those pieces to look rusty. This is Army Painter gunmetal, going on engines, weapons, hubcaps, and other details. Any metal parts that don't get gunmetal, like the chassis, undercarriage, and armor, get Army Painter rough iron. Then back to the cab for a coat of flat red. That leaves the tires and tractor body, which get a chocolatey off black. I'd been procrastinating on the chains and missile pod, unsure about color, but decided to keep it simple, gunmetal again. Using an old beat-up brush, I stipple patches of flat orange to start the rust effect. Once it's on the turrets and hulls, I watered down the leftovers and stained random metallic areas for extra weathering. My favorite step, the wash. I've started mixing glaze medium into my washes. The way it coats everything so smoothly is like spreading butter on warm bread. I wash the entire model this way, working in segments and letting it dry so I don't get sticky fingers. Time to brighten the cab. I mixed flat red, glaze medium, and black red for a thin coat on the raised areas, leaving the darker tones in the recesses. If I can't find a modeling solution for an empty spot, I'll slap on a freehand. I think I'll add a team symbol here, a skull with a wrench. Real original, I know. I start with a pencil sketch to plan the proportions and placement. Then I fill it in with thinned white paint. Same process for the turret. It needed a sardonic taunt for the opponents. Remember, you can always clean up your lines with the base color. Say cheese. Now for a combo move. Highlighting and weathering. We'll knock out both by dry brushing the entire model with tan earth from Vallejo. It brings out the fine details and gives it that dusty post-apocalyptic feel. Now here's an old formula for painting gems, lenses, and lights. Basically this pattern on screen. Start with a red, add a black-red circle in the top right, Highlight the lower left with orange, and then add a white reflection dot. Simple and effective. Over onto the opposite side, let's add some traces of former tailgaters. A little black-red for the splatter, and then a touch of blood for the blood gob to keep it looking fresh. And that's it! Here's the finished war rig. I'm beyond happy with how it turned out, exactly like I'd imagined. I can't wait to get it on the table and make light work of the opposition. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your audience. Hopefully there's another video being displayed right now which you might like to take a look at. Please like and subscribe if you're interested in more miniature painting content like this. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.